What is a change maker and how can someone be a change maker? Yeah, it's a really interesting topic because I think it's something that a lot of people perhaps struggle with in terms of understanding how to affect change. Like what is it that we do personally and professionally to actually change people's understanding of a problem that we might see or that a group that we're involved with sees, and how can we influence people's behaviour and change the way they think and perhaps then interact with the world around them. I think a change maker is someone who can both inspire through their words, but also through their actions and through the way in which they carry themselves in their own lives. And if you can influence other people, even if it's only a small amount, I see you're capable of being a change maker. But in a greater context, a change maker is someone who can also, I think, really have a positive voice within the way our society, our political structures currently work as well. So they can engage with a policy platform and actually try to create some really practical outcomes from that people can see as influencing their lives and having a positive impact on their lives. What is a change maker and how can someone be a change maker? Yeah, it's a really interesting topic because I think it's something that a lot of people perhaps struggle with in terms of understanding how to affect change. Like what is it that we do personally and professionally to actually change people's understanding of a problem that we might see or that a group that we're involved with sees, and how can we influence people's behaviour and change the way they think and perhaps then interact with the world around them. I think a change maker is someone who can both inspire through their words, but also through their actions and through the way in which they carry themselves in their own lives. And if you can influence other people, even if it's only a small amount, I see you're capable of being a change maker. But in a greater context, a change maker is someone who can also, I think, really have a positive voice within the way our society, our political structures currently work as well. So they can engage with a policy platform and actually try to create some really practical outcomes from that people can see as influencing their lives and having a positive impact on their lives.
I think a change maker is someone that actually does things, doesn't just talk about them and idealise about them, but gets in there and actually actively works towards a problem they see in the community or a challenge or an opportunity. And most importantly, they take people along with them. They're not just a lone ranger. So I think they create momentum around what they're doing. And also I think they have a really great imagination of what could be. And so they have that way of sustaining hope and seeing what's out there that other people might not be able to see sometimes as well.
I think, yeah, to be a change maker, you've got to bring people along for the ride. But even better, inspire and motivate them to kind of be actors on that change with you, and they themselves can then become change makers and drive that change further and wider.
So I think an effective change maker is a bit of a recipe. So you need to be able to balance all the ingredients for a fully wholesome change maker. Lots of people do change making and they get burnt out, and so they do it for little bursts in their life. So they like sprint, and so if you're a sprinter, you need to be fit and healthy and ready to do big bursts of work. If you're a marathon runner, you need to be able to do that over a longer, sustained period. And most of the big issues that we have to face really need a lot of marathon runners, but every now and again some sprinters to help us. So I think one of the first things change makers need to think about is, where do they fit in that? Are they people that can just come in and out and do an incredible burst of energy and then they need to recover? Or are they marathon types that can just slow and steady take the big long route to wherever they want to go?
I feel like we're at a real tipping point in our world at the moment, and we need everybody to step up and make change. And so it takes people to show a different way of doing things, and also just being really honest about it. So helping those around you understand why you care so deeply about creating change, and also being honest about the challenges along the way.
And I think effective change makers in the environment space have a balance of hope and optimism, but then also realism. It's important to be positive and always think about how great the future could be and work towards that kind of goal, but have that grounded in a sense of realism and a knowledge of kind of the structures and the systems that are in place, and then how we can kind of work with them or change them.
To be able to cultivate those qualities, I think you have to practice patience, so to speak. And sometimes I don't know if you can cultivate that. Some of us, I think some people innately have a little bit more patience than others. That being said, I think people can learn to have patience as well, and understand, and once again, understand that things take time. And if you are able to develop a sense of patience and compassion for yourself, or even compassion for your group or other people that are around you, then you can kind of understand that, okay, things didn't go as fast as we wanted them to, or didn't change exactly when we wanted it to. But there's always learnings from things that didn't go your way. So maybe that's in a way that someone can, or a group or an individual can actually cultivate a little bit of resilience, grit, or patience, is that just understanding that even when you don't win or succeed, there's still learnings from that, so there's always a positive outcome from what you do. But if you don't put in the effort or the energy in the first place, then you'll never be able to get the change or even the lessons to learn to create what you want.
When people are talking to you and have that level of empathy, that even if you don't agree with someone's point of view, you're willing to listen to it, you're willing to take it on board, and you're willing to find out where people who might have quite differing viewpoints actually agree. So where are those points of agreement? Because if we can build change from where we agree as opposed to where we disagree on something, then we can be more effective in actually finding, our common, what's common between us, as opposed to what separates us. And I think that's really important, that we can actually bring people together.
I think when we're influencing others in the environment sector or otherwise, I think we've got to be mindful of our efforts and maybe directing them into the place where they're best, or they're going to be of the most use. I think we're never going to be able to capture everyone, so it's about thinking about the people that maybe are engaged or are interested but not yet engaged. They're the people that we can tap into. So letting them know that there's space for them in the movement. Putting the call out, saying explicitly everyone's welcome. Those kinds of things to really open the gates and let people in that have been thinking about it or have this kind of side interest but haven't actually acted on it yet. And I think if you can show them that there's a direct kind of outcome of their action, I think that's really, really powerful too.
If perhaps your strategy is just to encourage someone or engage someone, then maybe that's potentially a better place to start off on, because instead of telling them to say, you need to change who you are, you need to change your identity, change your mindset, if you encourage them to kind of consider different aspects, then potentially that can transform.
Based, I guess, on the Living Smart coursework that we've done, and then our local group, we've very much started on an approach of starting small. And taking one step first and getting that sorted, and then seeing where that leads. So that kind of philosophy can be applied for in many different applications. So it might be just at home saying, right, I'm going to get our rubbish and our recycling sorted, and I'm going to get that really under control, and then I'm going to think about what I can do next. And starting with something that's achievable. So I often go and speak to people about waste, for example, and an easy first step is to think about recycling and composting green waste, for example. That's something that's really achievable for lots of people. So by starting with something small and achievable, people can get that under control, feel really good about it, and then think, oh, okay, well now what next? And often along the way, using that waste example, along the way you might start to think, oh, well actually if I change what I'm buying or what I'm bringing in the first place, I can do more. And in our local group, we've taken a similar approach of starting small and kind of getting some wins and then seeing where we can progress. So our local sustainability group really felt that the Plastic Free July Challenge was something that we'd all personally gained a lot from from participating in it previously. And we thought, well, if we got a lot of benefit from taking a challenge and using that to motivate ourselves, maybe we can get other people in our community also on board using that challenge model to kind of get motivated. And it also provides a really definite thing you're working on.
I think that there's a lack of confidence that needs to be addressed. People are sympathetic to an issue or a cause, but oh, I couldn't possibly do that, I couldn't possibly, oh, I'm a bit scared of that, oh, I wouldn't be very good at that. And there's this very negative, oh, I don't want to try that attitude that I think is quite prevalent. If people were to be trained up in what their legal rights are in doing a particular kind of action, how to communicate it in a group, what does consensus mean, what is collectivism, how do you write a media release, what are the roles if you're doing it, whatever kind of protest. And doing that skill sharing thing, and particularly role plays, have been useful for people that have never been in a situation. Having a role play in a training environment before an actual event can really build people's confidence and build to a great event. So I find that a lot of people are sympathetic but very, very hesitant to getting involved. I think a lot of that's about education. People need to know their rights, need to know that they do have a right to stand up for what they believe in and that it's okay.
I think we could make the environmental movement more resilient by I guess recognising the things that are achieved along the way. I think this is really important because as environmental enthusiasts, we really like to see some really good change and some things that, you know, happen in a positive light. We want to get things back to the way they were, or we want to return and restore biodiversity and make things better. And sometimes that's a really long-term goal and it can take a long time. And so if you're not recognising the things that are getting achieved along the way, it can get a little bit frustrating, or you can feel like you're not achieving what you'd like to achieve. And I think a lot of environmental volunteers set their expectations really high. And so just sort of recognising those achievements along the way will create a lot more resilience for groups and for individuals as well. And building up networks with people that are around for a long time can really help with partnerships and just achieving stuff on the ground. Things are a lot more achievable, I think, when you're working towards the long term.
I think just meeting people and building relationships between different groups is probably the key to resilience, is having, you know, good and long-term relationships that are built on hopefully shared values. You know, people might have different ways of doing stuff, but we're probably all working towards a common goal.
I'm a really strong believer of safety in numbers, and I felt really strong that if I had the backing of my community, I was able to reach out to the wider Anangu community, and that's Guggatha mob, that was West Coast mob, that was Kaurna community as well, that was, you know, people in the Guggatha Oangata community, right across to the Arabana community, like just networked across the whole entire state of our Aboriginal network. And then to build these networks with the Con Council and the MUA and the unions on board, and send a strong message to the government of that day.
To be able to strengthen the resiliency of the environment movement, I think it really needs to focus on, once again, how do we create positive outcomes for each other? We do need to stress what are the realities of environmental degradation, and that there's a lot of harm that it creates for our current communities as well as our future communities when we don't take care of our environment. But I think a lot of people just, from my perspective, a lot of people turn off when you're harking on the negative. So in one aspect, yes, it's necessary to talk about those realities, but at the same time, we need to make sure that driving force is a little bit more in a positive aspect, where the stress is on, when we're able to do this for the environment, we're able to create this positive outcome for these people, these type of industries, these type of communities, rather than what we're doing right now will continue to push, degrade. And I think that's just a little bit of mindset change. So I think if we were going to balance out how do we mix those messages, or where do we place those messages, how do we create a lot more airtime for positive outcomes and make those actually spread a lot more and be able to inspire people, because a lot of people actually don't get inspired by the realities of climate change. They get inspired by their partner, their community member doing something incredible. They get inspired by South Australia being a leader in the world, and they want to hop on that bandwagon. So I think if we're able to stress on those messages, we're able to continue to facilitate a lot more resilience and bring a lot more people on board. A lot of frustration comes out when you think change can happen very quickly. And the reality is that it never does, and anything worthwhile never happens overnight. So I think if anyone who wants to make a positive impact long term, and so change, you got to make sure you know that you're in it for the long haul. So if you don't have, the key, I guess a lot of keywords that get thrown around there is that if you don't have grit, resilience, and also just the will to keep going, then that's essentially what are the key elements for me in regards to effective change makers.
So you need to be fit for purpose. So if you're someone who has got, sees this as a lifelong work, then you need to build in the things that will keep you going, so practices that will help you do the work. So that means time out, it means meditation, or it might mean prayer, or it might mean dancing, it might mean music, whatever it is. You need to have things to help you look after yourself. And you also need to have an orientation, like a stance towards what it is. Because passion's not going to be enough to keep you going. You also have to have some technical skills, and you have to have a bit of political savvy, because you need to bring others with you. You can be passionate about it all you like, but if you don't bring others with you, you're very much a lone voice in the wilderness. You definitely need leaders. That's absolutely a critical part of change making. It helps to kind of coalesce how the movement can go forward. A good leader of a movement is someone who's got a whole lot of people behind them, and not just speaking for themselves, but knows how to bring people together and doesn't necessarily have to be at the front of that.